Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, she's a Republican who represents the 19th Congressional District up in New York. And she also sits on the House on Financial Services, the House Committee, rather, on Financial Services, and is part of the Congressional Job Creators Caucus. Congresswoman, welcome to America's Radio News.
Glad to be with you, Chris and Dana.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about creating jobs in this country. We're seeming to have a bit of a struggle doing that. What is missing? Why are now, of course, the job creation driven by small businesses in our nation? Everybody knows that.
Right.
What is missing? What is the missing element? What's keeping them from hiring?
They don't have the freedom that they need to be able to do common sense things that they know will work for their clients, for their customers, for their communities. There is a regulatory juggernaut coming out of Washington, D.C., and they're facing a huge tax cliff come January 1st, 2013. And they know this, and they are holding back. I've had small businesses, the engine of our economy, as you just said, Chris, owners of small business tell me in our district in the Hudson Valley that they are not hiring because they just don't know what bad things are going to come at them, but it's not looking good. And the health law in and of itself is a big, big problem. We just had a report today that the tax credit that was supposed to help small businesses has only been used probably by less than 10% of the businesses who could have accessed it because it's just too complicated and it doesn't meet their needs. They need Washington to help them, not hurt them. And right now, the federal government, unfortunately, with this administration, which is, as we all know, has an anti-business bent, unfortunately, is hurting them.
And in fact, Congresswoman, Bank of America just did a survey report on small businesses, and they found that, no surprise, that their top economic concerns were oil and gas prices, consumer spending, and the effectiveness of government leaders. And that's to your point that, you know, they're afraid to move forward. They're afraid to go ahead and take the leap of faith and hire another couple workers and maybe buy a few more trucks to get their product out there because they just don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
They don't, and of course there's that threshold of 50 employees, which puts them in a whole new category as far as penalties and mandates for the health law. So that means that, we've got a desperate need for more jobs in this country. We've got record low workforce participation. We have unemployment that has stayed stubbornly above 8%, and we can't afford to have Washington not act. The president has to take leadership. He's opposed the Keystone Pipeline. If we increase production, that would certainly put a downward pressure on energy prices. That would be a big help. We need to rethink the regulations, the taxes coming out of Washington. We're ready on the House side to do this. We are absolutely working with our colleagues, both sides of the aisle, and we can't get the Senate to move. And the administration clearly is out to get business. It's just too bad, and we can change it.
Congresswoman Nan Hayworth is our guest right now, Republican who represents the 19th Congressional District up there in New York. She also sits on the Congressional Job Creators Caucus. You just mentioned workforce participation. And for those out there that don't know that type of technical speak, it's basically how many folks do we actually have working in the United States right now in the working pool.
Right.
Now, the president has been quick to point out that the unemployment rate has been falling, but economists point out that it's largely due to folks exiting the workforce because they are too frustrated, because there's no opportunity in America right now to find a job. That is by far the biggest driver that is driving down the unemployment rate, not the addition of jobs.
Exactly.
The question I have for you, Congresswoman, is that no political party, Republican or Democrat, is calling for changing the way that we tabulate unemployment in this country, because all those people that are dropping off the rolls are no longer counted by our federal government. No, the president nor the current GOP candidate for running for election for president has called for a reformation. And to my knowledge, nobody in Congress is calling for a reformation on how we count the unemployed in this country.
Well, Chris, it's a great thought, and I will tell you certainly that just as we mentioned the workforce participation rate, one way we're trying to emphasize the nature of the problem statistically is by pointing out that right now, just over 63% of the folks in America who could be part of the workforce. Just over 63% are actually in the workforce and doing their jobs. And just a few years ago, that was over 67%. That is millions of people who have exited that jobs marketplace because a lot of them are long-term unemployed. Goes right back to the climate we have in this country for business.
Right,
but
Congresswoman,
growth and larger ones.
But that message isn't getting out because typically we in the press usually pressed for time and don't have the luxury like you do here on America's Radio News to dig down deep into these numbers. All you see is the unemployment rate is dropping 8.1%. Right. And again, neither political party, because frankly, both political parties have benefited from this. Ignoring people that have suffered not only the indignity of long unemployment, but have to suffer a further indignity of not being counted by their government. Nobody is calling for a reformation on the way we tabulate unemployment in this country.
Well, I think part of it, Chris, and you're right, the headline unemployment rate gets the biggest amount of coverage. There's no question. But I think a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that we're trying to emphasize the policy solutions that we want to address the unemployment rate at whatever level it is. And you're absolutely right. We need to emphasize that, hey, it is far worse than that headline number would indicate. But if it's above, some folks refer to a natural headline unemployment rate somewhere around 4.5%. In an ideal world, that's about what you'd expect. Right. We are way off that. So anytime we're over that, we need to do better. And we know we can do better. We can make our tax code flatter and fairer. We have the highest taxes on business, small or large, in the world. And businesses are choosing to move out of the United States. That's a big problem. We have regulations that are far too heavy and costly and weigh disproportionately on small businesses that create 2/3 of the jobs in this country. That doesn't need to be the case. We can let common sense prevail. There's a lot of good ideas that come out of our small businesses, and they've been ignored in Washington. Again, the president seems to have full court press to penalize businesses for doing well and, unfortunately, to try to get in the way. And that's a huge problem. And we've got a raft of new taxes coming January 1st, 2013, that we are going to have to deal with as fast as possible.
Well, jobs in the microcosm of the economy at large will be a huge issue in the 2012 presidential election, if not the issue. And Congresswoman Nan Hayworth, make sure to get you back on and talk about efforts in Congress to actually rectify that. Republican who represents the 19th District up there in New York. Thank you so much for your time here on America's Radio News.
Always a pleasure.